Top of the morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a Friday edition of The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I'm Emerson Latzia, rolling solo with you here for the next 55 minutes or so. So in today's episode, the Sweat's Baseball Hall of Fame Committee continues its voting. And guess what? They love steroids, and I love that. A DFS look at the divisional round, which props to target on the DK Sportsbook ahead of those 4 games this weekend, plus top plays around the NHL. But first, best bets around the association. Let's go. DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer and Jeff Pratt, along with sports radio host Mike Mutnansky, making his debut here on The Sweat. Mutt, it is great to see you. How have you been?
Emerson, I've been good. It's not great to be with Nick Fryer. I'll deal with that for a few minutes. But to be with you and Jeff and talk some NBA, I'll deal with Fryer for 15 minutes.
Yeah, Fryer, how does that feel to know that literally everybody hates you?
You know what? I wasn't ready for that. You know, you learn to live with it. When Mutt's turned on you, then I guess you know that's when you've hit rock bottom, because Mutt's like the nicest guy. Mutt's the nicest guy ever. So I don't know what to say. Jeez.
When the unemployed guy is ripping you, you're in trouble. That's
yeah. Well, you know what, Mutt?
That's not what I meant. But okay.
Mutt, you are a true professional and probably the only one on this panel. Sorry, Pratt. Which favorite on this 9-game NBA slate tonight is in the best spot in your opinion?
I want the Grizzlies. I want the Grizzlies tonight. 7.5 points against the Lakers. I want them because I want to bet against the Lakers and one of the best half-court defenses in the NBA. Jaren Jackson Jr. now a minus 210 monster favorite to be Defensive Player of the Year. Fade the Lakers all day. Grizzlies laying almost 8 points now. Started 7.5. It's going to get to 8. Give me the Grizz on a Friday night NBA slate, which is actually a really fun slate heading into the football weekend.
Yeah, it's true, Fryer. You got the biggest favorite here, the Nuggets, and I know the Pacers have been on this skid too.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mutt, you're gonna feel real good about this because I'm with you on this
Ooh.
one. But the thing for me is too, I know LeBron, we can only read into his questionable tag so much, but he is questionable tonight. So if he doesn't play, we're gonna see that line probably jump up a little bit more. If he does, I would imagine that we're not gonna see it dip down too much. So I would think it's 7.5 right now. You're still at a safe spot. When you look at the market movement on this one too, 51% of the bets are going towards the Grizzlies. So pretty even right now, but this is the sharp play. They're getting 74% of the handle. And the Grizzlies, of course, red hot right now in terms of covering the spread during this winning streak. They're 7-4 against the spread.
Jeff Pratt riding high after his Celtics knocked off the Warriors last night. Which favorite's in a good spot tonight, dude?
Thank you for acknowledging that first, Emerson. And I won't forget what you just said before you cut to this question, by the way. But I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets here. I know it's a double-digit spread, but these teams are just heading in complete opposite directions heading into this matchup. Denver's won 8 straight. Indy's lost 5 in a row. Furthermore, the Pacers are just 1-5 over their last 6 against the spread. Nikola Jokic has been playing at an insane level lately. He's coming off back-to-back triple-doubles. But it's not just him finally in Denver. The other important players are finally stepping up for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray is back in form. Aaron Gordon continues to play his role perfectly. And Michael Porter Jr. provides consistent offense. So I have a hard time seeing Indiana keeping this one close tonight.
Yeah, only thing that makes me nervous there, Pratt, Pacers 7-3 ATS in their last 10 when playing on a single day of rest. But right now, you're exactly right. Eye test, they suck at playing basketball. Let's flip the script and get an underdog you like tonight, Fryer. Go ahead, Giggles.
They suck at playing basketball, and you're trying to step on Jeff's toes too. Who's the unprofessional one now?
All I'm doing is just bringing up a counterpoint. That's all. Hey, listen, I'm just doing my job, man.
Are you the analyst now too? Are you trying? I know you've been trying to steal that on the slate at nice when we're on with Jeff. This is getting a little ridiculous.
I hand out winning golf bets, Fryer.
Doesn't mean you can do whatever you want.
I hand out winning golf bets, Fryer. What do you want? You want me to all our incredible fans around the world? You want me to not help make them money?
That's a fair point. That's what we're trying to do here. And with that being the case, you asked for an underdog play. I actually have 2 that I really like tonight. Oklahoma City plus 3.5 and the Knicks plus 2.5. When it comes to the Thunder, I know they're playing another team that's really good against the spread in the Kings, but the Thunder are 14-5 against the spread as road dogs this season. With the Knicks, what's really interesting to me with this one, plus 2.5, Trae Young is questionable right now. The Knicks opened at plus 4, and so they've lost 1.5 points. They are not the public play right now, so we're seeing some serious reverse line movement right now. Not the sharp play necessarily either, but things seem to be, 42% of the bets, 41% of the handle, so it's still pretty even. But to see this amount of drop off really makes me like the Knicks tonight.
Okay, Pratt, what about you, dude?
I'm with you, Nick. I also like the Knicks. I think you have to choose between one of those two underdogs. And I don't necessarily love either one of them, talking about the Thunder as your other pick, but I would give the Knicks the best chance of winning outright here out of all these underdogs. I think New York, they're just a completely different team on the road compared to at home. They're 14-8 in away games this season. They've also dominated the Hawks over the last few years. The Knicks have won 8 of the last 10 meetings between these teams. Now, it is worth noting that the Hawks have won 4 straight.
Yep.
The Knicks have lost back-to-back. But I'm weighing the recent history between these teams into consideration more than that. So I'm going to roll with the Knicks, just like you, Nick.
Yeah, Atlanta surging, winning 4 in a row. They've covered 3 straight there, Pratt. Mutt, you got a dog you like tonight?
Yeah, I went really out on a limb, guys. I took the shortest dog on the board. Give me the Orlando Magic getting a point tonight against the Pelicans. The Pelicans continue to play without Zion Williamson, who can't stay healthy. Brandon Ingram not back until next week. They have looked brutal to me without those 2 players. And the Magic aren't good. I saw them in person play the worst NBA game ever against the Celtics about a month ago. Both teams were terrible. But I'll tell you right now, I will take them getting the point at home. They're also coming off a West Coast trip. They've been off since Sunday, 4-1 against the spread on that trip. They're home. They're rested. The Pelicans now 2 stars. Give me the Magic as a ugly game. I'm not going to watch it, but I will bet it. Give me the point at home.
Far healthier team. You nailed that, dude. Which game total brings the best value tonight, Jeff Pratt?
You know, Emerson, I've learned my lesson here. On Wednesday, I came on the show and I picked the Lakers and Kings to go over a ridiculous 245-point total, which completely went against my philosophy. I just couldn't pick against the Kings. They were scoring 132-plus points in 4 straight games. And the Lakers, when they played them, it was 11 days ago at that point, they racked up 270 without overtime. But as I should have known, they went well under that game total. So I'm going right back to the Lakers tonight against Memphis and taking under on their point total. These are 2 capable offenses, but pretty much everything has to go right to combine for that point total without overtime. If one of these teams goes through a scoring drought for 5 minutes, that could all but kill any chance you have of hitting the over. So taking the under here is way more realistic.
Mutt, your game total du jour.
Oh, did you guys watch the Brooklyn Nets last night? Oh,
No.
The Brooklyn Nets. Simmons tossed out of the game. They look atrocious. They got to play back-to-back against Utah. Give me the under at 229, Jazz and the Brooklyn Nets. If you look at the season to date so far, the Brooklyn Nets playing games that only go over 40% of the time. Second worst in the NBA. Now they got to play Utah. Utah can put up a bunch of points, but the idea here for me is Brooklyn offensively, bad off the back-to-back, lower scoring game. Not a lot of betting in this game so far, but bets have come in a bit on the under. I want under 229, Brooklyn and Jazz.
All right, Fryer, talk to me.
Yeah, so I have 2 that I like, one over, one under, and I'll try and keep it quick on these with the Grizzlies-Lakers game. I know it's at 243 right now, obviously a huge number, but I do like the over in this one. Looking at the market right now, the sharps are in on this one, 35% of the bets, 56% of the handle. Lakers do see the overhit a fair amount, and Memphis has seen it hit a ton of late. The over 7-0-1 in their last 8 games. Then I like the under in the Golden State Cleveland game. Of course, the Cavs move at the slowest pace in the league, and I know Donovan Mitchell is back tonight, but I don't think that's going to matter. Cleveland bottom 6 in terms of seeing the overhit, and the Warriors don't see the overhit that often on the second leg of a back-to-back. And again, market movement. Only 14% of the bets are going toward the under here, but 61% of the handle so far this morning.
All right, let's go to the props department here, Mutt. You got a favorite prop this evening on this 9-game NBA slate?
Yeah, I have 2 props, one on the NBA and one real quick one for the weekend. The prop for tonight, Caleb Martin, guys, back for the Miami Heat. He missed a bunch of time with a quad injury, but he's back and healthy. He's played 26 and 35 minutes his last 2 games. He's rumored to be traded, so they want to showcase him a little bit. His rebound total is 4.5. I want the over. DraftKings right now is giving you plus 130 on over 4.5 rebounds on Caleb Martin. I assume he's back to almost full strength. He plays more. I think this is a very fair number right now on the board at DK Sportsbook. I want the over on that. And I want the over on 97.5 Jaguars tweets from Emerson at some point tomorrow on Twitter. I want the over. I have bet my mortgage on that. Do not let me down, Emerson.
I don't know. I'll actually be in Kansas City tomorrow for the game, so I may actually sit back and try to soak it up a little more. The under, there could be some value there right now, especially after a couple bevies and stuffing my face with barbecue. But Mutt, first show here, you're already over-delivering a prop for tonight and the weekend. I hope you're taking notes, Fryer. What do you like on this NBA slate?
Unbelievable. Well, all right. Good job, Mutt. You won Emerson over. That's really hard to do. But anyways, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, over 30.5 points tonight. I know he's been down a little bit. The under's hit in the last 3 games. In the 2 games prior, his under was low. His total was lower than this number, 28.5 and then 29.5. And that is why I'm interested in the over here. In the 5 instances where his total has increased after the under hit in the previous contest, the over has hit 4 times this season. So 80%, I'm going with the over SGA tonight.
What is Pratt's prop of the day?
I'm going to go with Lauri Markkanen over 35.5 points and rebounds tonight. I like to start off by saying that it would be a criminal offense if Markkanen does not make the All-Star game at this point. You know, he's averaging 10 more points than last season, 3 more rebounds. He's shooting the 3 at a ridiculously efficient rate. This has just turned into a Lauri Markkanen fan announcement, I guess. But just looking at his numbers as of late, he's cleared 35.5 points and rebounds pretty easily in 6 of his last 8 games. And he's really stepping up on the boards. That's where I've been the most impressed. He's grabbed 12 plus in 3 straight contests. Nicholas Claxton is really his main competition on the glass tonight. He's having a great year, but Markkanen also has a significant size advantage over him. So I'm not really worried about his production in that department. This feels like a great spot for him to keep it rolling.
Fryer could back me up on this. You won't find a bigger Lauri Markkanen stand than yours truly here. And I've tried to help Fryer navigate the props department.
Yeah, well, until he does poorly like Devin Booker that one time where you tried to convince me about him and then he did poorly. Haven't heard you say anything about him since.
You are angry today, buddy. It's the weekend. You should relax, enjoy yourself. Mutt, great having you here, man. We're out of time, guys. You 3 are free to go. Coming up, following day 1 of voting by our Sweat Hall of Fame committee. Manny Ramirez is one of 7 players to have multiple votes so far, right? We check out 2 more ballots from our committee right after Jesse and Jules deliver a DFS preview of Sunday's Cowboys 49ers matchup, brought to you by our friends at KFC.
What's up, everybody? Jesse Cofield here, along with DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow. Welcome to this week's Sunday Night Playoff Showdown presented by KFC. So, Jules, we have an old-school playoff matchup this week as the 49ers and Cowboys will play each other for the 9th time in the NFL playoffs. We saw these same 2 teams face off on Wild Card Weekend last year, with the 49ers coming into Dallas and getting the win. Now the Cowboys are the road team and looking for a little revenge. So, Julian, who are you looking at for your KFC bucket pick for this week?
Yeah, I want a guy with some versatility on the home team, and I'm going to Deebo Samuel. You can look to him to run the ball, you can look to him to receive the ball, and we saw last week him rip off a long touchdown in that playoff game against the Seattle Seahawks. So I like the versatility. I think that there are ways to attack the Dallas defense, both passing and running the ball, but a good pass rush from Dallas. So getting the ball quickly, whether it be a handoff, a screen pass, a slant, to a guy like Deebo, I think can pay dividends in this game.
So who's the player that you are going to be stacking with your bucket pick?
I'm actually going to go to the other side here. I'm expecting kind of a high-scoring game, so I will look to CeeDee Lamb on the Dallas side. I think that if Dallas is going to be playing from behind, we're going to get a high-scoring game. The passing game for the Cowboys has to do something, and the secondary for the 49ers is the way to attack it, because wide receivers have scored the 28th most fantasy points against this secondary. So I think CeeDee Lamb should find ways, especially if game script holds, to score some fantasy points in this one.
All right, thank you, Julian, and thank you guys for watching this week's Sunday Night Playoff Showdown presented by Kentucky Fried Chicken. KFC's pot pie only costs $5. It's the ultimate comfort meal. It's filled with a delicious mix of tender chicken, savory sauce, and perfectly cooked veggies. It's the perfect post-holiday pick-me-up. It's finger-licking good.
All right, with the Baseball Hall of Fame's Class of 2023 announcement approaching, it will arrive, I believe, on Tuesday. We thought it would be a good idea to fill out some fake ballots around here. 3 of our baseball guys unveiled who they are voting in yesterday here on The Sweat. We got 2 more today. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Maddie Big Saxy LaMarca will do the same, right? Meow. Gare Bear, let's punch up your ballot. A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, Scott Rowland, Billy Wagner. Talk to me. Take me inside your big, beefy brain. What criteria did you use for selection here?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, I mean, I guess we'll get into the PED stuff a little later. it's tough with the Hall of Fame. One, I don't really care, so it was kind of interesting to put myself into the mindset of someone who actually cares about this. But I think you have to factor a couple things. Like for me, there are benchmark stats. Like I think if you hit 500 home runs, you get to be in the MLB Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And that's something that Gary Sheffield did. And I also think when you look at Sheffield's numbers, he's almost like a forgotten slugger of this era. I guess because there were just so many, and there's a lot of sort of controversy wrapped up into Gary Sheffield. But when you look at his overarching statistics, he finished his career really well. He was still hitting as an above average hitter when he retired. A 141 WRC plus, that's a better career mark than David Ortiz, than Reggie Jackson, than Larry Walker, like all Hall of Famers in their own right. I just think the numbers really stack up. And I think where Sheffield maybe differs from a couple guys who weren't on my ballot, you know, someone like Andrew Jones or Carlos Beltran, yeah, you could make the case that he was like a stat accumulator. He played 22 years, but like I said, he was at the top of his game for nearly every single one of those 22 years, at least the ones where he was healthy. So again, the 500 home runs carrying a lot of weight for me with Sheffield in particular, but I do just think he's a much better hitter than a lot of people might remember. The other sort of fringe guys for me, I think Billy Wagner. Closers are a really tough conversation in general, but when you look at Wagner's statistics, he's basically Mariano Rivera, just not named Mariano Rivera and wearing pinstripes. I mean, Rivera finished his career 2.21 ERA, a 2.76 FIP, and a 2.60 SIERA. Billy Wagner, 2.31 ERA, a better FIP at 2.73, higher strikeout rate, and a 2.27 SIERA. I mean, the advanced stats like him more than Mariano Rivera. And I know Rivera had the longevity, he had the panache. That's why he somehow was a unanimous selection to the Hall of Fame as a closer. But I think Billy Wagner was just as good and just didn't happen to be a New York Yankee. 6th all time in saves as well. And that's really the only stat you can kind of like rank these guys by, I think. And then Scott Rowland's a really interesting case. I think Rowland gets propped up a little bit because he's like, quote unquote, the clean guy from the steroid era. And he's almost celebrated for that a little bit. But at the same time, I think dominance of a stretch. Like, I think your peak matters when it comes to Hall of Fame. And from 1997 to 2004, Scott Rowland had a 48 F-WAR. That was third best in baseball. The only two guys more valuable for an 8-year stretch than Scott Rowland were Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds.
Okay.
I mean, he was basically the best third baseman in baseball for a decade. And I think when you can say that, when you're the best player at your position for a decade, you're a Hall of Famer.
I mean, Maddie, you've got A-Rod on there. You got Rowland on there. You got Wagner on your ballot as well. Plus Helton, Beltran, Andrew Jones. I think you may be the first one who has decided to vote for Andrew Jones here. I mean, your process in narrowing down your list, what was it? You're clearly not steering away from the PED guys either, and that cloud hanging over some of their heads.
Yeah, well, for me, I'm a little bit different when it comes to the PEDs. Like, I do care about it. I think to pretend that it didn't happen is not wise. And that's why I leave off guys like Manny Ramirez and Gary Sheffield.
All right, but you have A-Rod on there.
Well, let me make my point.
Okay.
Like Manny Ramirez and Gary Sheffield, if they were born 20 years earlier or 20 years later, they're probably not Hall of Fame caliber baseball players. I think you can take A-Rod and put him in any era with any ball, and the guy is going to be a Hall of Famer. He was that talented. There's a stat that I like on Baseball Reference called JAWS. And basically what that is it measures your peak as a baseball player, your best 7 years essentially, and your longevity. So it's kind of a little bit of both, right? How good were you at your peak and how long were you able to keep it going for? A-Rod has a JAWS of 91 in this class. Carlos Beltran is second in that department, and he's at 57.3. So the gap between A-Rod and everybody else who is currently on the ballot is just astronomical. I think that A-Rod, to pretend that he didn't exist is not good for like the long-term league of baseball,
Okay.
right? Like Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, two excellent hitters. If you're just looking at their hitting numbers, yes, they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but they brought very little else to the table. No defense, very little base running. So they got the axe from my ballot. I prefer to target more well-rounded players, guys with slightly less controversy, although we'll get to Beltran, I'm sure, at some point. But A-Rod to me is just, he's in that elite tier that it doesn't really make sense to have a Hall of Fame if guys like that are not going to be included.
Yeah, Gary, and again, going back to your ballot, you had A-Rod on there, and Matty did not have Manny Ramirez, but you did. So why did you deem Manny worthy of the Hall of Fame?
I mean, I did like how Matt sort of framed his argument.
Yeah, I did too.
agree.
He sounded very
I think-
smart.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, I think I've said it a lot. I think not acknowledging the existence of guys like Clemens and Bonds and A-Rod, it just looks silly. And you can make the case that maybe the more fringy guys like Ramirez, like Sheffield, wouldn't have been Hall of Fame players had it not been for the PEDs. But at the same time, it's such a gray area for me that I'm almost of the mind that Cooperstown, first and foremost, is a museum of the history of baseball. And every era is different. Baseball, more than any other sport we have, is so defined by its eras. And I think, I don't even care if you literally mention it on the plaque that they took PEDs or were on the Mitchell Report. They have to be included in the history of baseball. And I can't undo the mistakes of the voting classes before me for this fictitious exercise we are undergoing today. But like I said, I think by the numbers, Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer, despite how he got there. And for me, if you're okay with one guy who took PEDs, even if it's Barry Bonds, for me, I'm just like, you know what? Let's acknowledge it as an era of baseball. And as long as we're doing that, I think it's perfectly fine to put those guys in the Hall of Fame.
Well, let's take a look at our updated votes after 5 ballots now have been revealed. So a player needs 6 votes from our committee to get in. A-Rod, Roland, and Wagner all need just 2 more votes out of 3 members. I'm looking down below. Carlos Beltran. I guess that means he can't get in now with just 2 votes. But Matty, you mentioned him in his prime. He was arguably the best center fielder of his generation. You believe he deserves to get in?
I think he is undoubtedly a top 10 center fielder all time.
Okay.
He did everything on a baseball field. One of the greatest defenders in the league. In terms of stolen base percentage, the greatest base stealer in baseball history. No one with as many attempts as Carlos Beltran was as successful as he was. You know, I think it was over 85% of his attempts were successful. He was extremely productive as a hitter. He had arguably the greatest postseason that any baseball player has ever had when he went on that run with the Astros. And I think the combination of obviously being involved with the Astros, it's a big deal. I'm not going to pretend that it isn't, but remember, he was a player at that point, an aging player. It's not like he was the manager of the team or the general manager that allowed this stuff to go on. He was a player, and I think that a player looking for an edge is kind of a natural thing. But Beltran also, I think, gets penalized for that huge looking strikeout that he had in the playoffs with the Mets. You know, going down on that nasty Adam Wainwright curveball, I think has been held against him unfairly for far too long. So I think on any statistic you want to look at, Carlos Beltran's going to grade out very favorably. And I definitely want to just make a shout out to Andrew Jones as well.
Yes.
His career really took a downhill turn when he turned about 30 years old. But you could make a case that this is the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. He had 10 gold gloves and he hit 424 homers. Like, how does that guy not make the Hall of Fame? I'm a huge proponent of defense. I think Keith Hernandez should be in the Hall of Fame. No surprise there as a Mets fan, but Andrew Jones, to me, like, I don't think that I should be the only person that has voted for him so far. So shame on the rest of the DK.
Absolutely.
People.
Shame on you, Gary, because I remember that Jones becoming a household name. I think he was 19, youngest player to homer in the World Series. He hit 2 in Game 1 against the Yankees that year. All right, Gare Bear, maybe eventually you'll come around on Andrew Jones. Who knows? We'll see. Guys, thanks so much. Appreciate it. So I guess we're going to unveil the 3 remaining ballots. That will be Monday here on The Sweat. Coming up after this break, we'll take a DFS look at this weekend's divisional round around the NFL. So we got Jeff and Pierce standing by. Hang out. A little under 24 hours. So we're probably about, 28-ish hours away from America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, kicking off against the Chiefs, which will kick off the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, damn good to see both of you here. We've done the sports betting thing so much all week long. Haven't really touched on the DFS side. So let's do that now. Get your favorite DFS plays for each showdown contest here. Could be your favorite captain play, can be your favorite value play, whatever. But let's start with Jags and Chiefs. Who would you right now say you got to stuff inside those showdown lineups, Jeff?
Always has been Evan Ingram. I mean,
yeah.
This is and it's not just as a value play here. He is underpriced. I mean, for some reason, you look at Evan Ingram in the flex. I mean, you got to go way down there past the backup quarterbacks, Emerson, to get this guy at 5,800. But I'm talking captain spot for Evan Ingram. You put Evan Ingram at 8,700 in your captain spot, my God, the flexibility becomes amazing. And look, you say, well, is this good? Will this be viable? Evan Ingram averaged 71.85 yards, 5.42 receptions, and almost half a touchdown per game over his last 7 starts. We saw multiple upside games from Evan Ingram. Yes, the upside is absolutely there. And we're talking about a Chiefs defense, again, allowed the 5th most receiving touchdowns to the tight end position. I won't recreate what I said yesterday, but they've been allowing touchdowns to some third string tight ends lately. Let's put it that way. I think Evan Ingram is going to give them all kind of matchup problems in the red zone. He's seen multiple red zone targets in 3 of his last 7 games as well. I think this is going to be a very key player to the Jaguars, especially when they get down inside the 20-yard line. Love him here as the captain's pick. Like I said, he's underpriced, and man, he lets you fit in both quarterbacks and more. Averaging
just north of 11 DK fantasy points per game, and that kind of feels like his floor in what should be a high-scoring contest. Pierce, where are you going here on the DFS side of Jags Chiefs?
I like the Evan Ingram pick. Kansas City drops their safeties back. They give up a lot of underneath routes. They get eaten alive by receiving running backs. Unfortunately, Travis Etienne is not really the greatest receiving running back, or at least he's not used in that role very much. So Ingram's going to be in a great spot as a low A-dot guy. I would also consider Christian Kirk. He's mainly their slot receiver, has one of their lowest A-dots. He should be a good play in the flex spot. But I'm going to go to my guy, which has been Jerick McKinnon all week. I've mentioned him. I don't believe most of the field's going to be on him because they've kind of taken it easy and reduced his role over the last month. Now it's time to dust him off, get him out there. He has been absolutely a big play running back and a big play receiver all season. And those are the things that you absolutely have to have in a showdown slate, especially if you can get low ownership. And then also, by the way, the Jaguars have allowed the 2nd most receptions to running backs and 2nd most receiving yards to running backs.
Yeah.
Last playoffs, Emerson.
Yeah.
Jerick McKinnon snap count went from like 30% to 70%. So I fully believe you're going to see Jerick McKinnon on the field a ton as well.
Okay, let's go to Saturday night's game here, guys. NFC East matchup between the Giants and Eagles. Third time that these two teams have met in a 7-week span. Pierce, who do you like in showdown contest here, dude?
You know I'm going to pick the super freak,
Yeah!
Richie James.
Hell yeah, brother!
Contractually obligated. I'm sorry. I know he had a down week last week. It was just okay. It was a Isaiah Hodgins week. It's just kind of the way the game script worked out. Hodgins played 22 snaps out of the slot, but even when Hodgins wasn't in the slot, he basically was lining up on the inside. That's where the Giants go. Those are the passes that Daniel Jones can complete. Brian Dable knows that. They've been leaning on this all season before James made his appearance. We had Wan'Dale Robinson doing the same thing. Slot receivers for the Giants. And this is going to be a different game script. We're expecting the Giants to be playing from behind, probably going to be dealing with a lot of pressure. So Jones is going to be checking down, going to his safety valves. So it's going to be Hodgins. It's going to be James. One of those two should be in for a breakout game if they are able to hang in it. And even if they get blown out, those guys are going to get plenty of volume.
Yeah, dude. One of his best games this season, too, came against the Eagles. Week 15, 7 receptions on 9 targets, 61 yards, and a tutty. Look at you, dude. The Richie James Jr. train. You on board that, Jeff?
I mean, I certainly don't mind it, but I'm actually going to go to the what you call the third string wide receiver on the other team, and Quez Watkins. I think at 4,500, I think what the one difference between this, the big difference between this showdown slate and like the Chiefs and Jags, there's just not much value once you get under 500. Or 5,000. There's just not much big play potential. Quez Watkins, if Quez Watkins finds like a 60-yard touchdown and outproduces, say, Devonta Smith or even AJ Brown, I mean, my goodness, the leverage you're going to get by using him at 4,500 is insane. And you say, well, that's not that realistic. I mean, this is a player who's got a ton of speed, and his target share isn't bad. I mean, you look at his first game against the Giants, 5 targets, 4 catches. Now, he's been a little bit more of the slot receiver and like a low ADOT guy, but again, he could break one here. And if this game, let's say the Eagles, maybe rush for an early touchdown, they get the Giants on their heels. I mean, Quez could break one. And again, I just think there's a couple different factors here. There's not many other upside options down there. And then you've just got the big leverage against the higher owned Eagles wide receivers here. I think Quez Watkins is a great value pick, mainly for a flex play, but again, saving you a ton of money there in your flex for this game.
I mean, we all know one of the most anticipated games of the weekend. Again, only really 4 to choose from. We got Bills. Bengals is what everyone wanted to see back in Week 17. Who makes the most sense to add to your showdown lineups here, Jeff? And where do the quarterbacks fall on that list?
Yeah, they fall pretty high in this game. I'm just going to go with what you call, I guess, the chalk here. I'm going to go Joey Burrow.
Okay.
And I think he's a great captain's pick. I think that if Cincinnati does even just keep this game close, Joe Burrow's going to be dropping back 35+, probably 40+ times. Teams against Buffalo average 36 dropbacks per year, so a fast-paced team in terms of situation neutral pace of play. The Bengals are going to have to pass the ball because their run game has cratered. Joe Mixon's averaging about 3 yards per carry over his last 3 games. The O-line has issues. I think you're going to see Burrow running more in this game as well, for the simple fact that he's going to have to create some run plays. He's going to have to move the ball. He's going to have to keep the defense, honest a little bit. And I think that just all leads to upside. Joe Burrow as well is an underrated runner. He's 4th in red zone rush attempts this year. He's scored 4 rushing touchdowns. So I think that this is a game where, again, Burrow's going to have to do everything, but he's more than capable of doing it. And he's got elite wide receivers who, again, should be able to get open against a Buffalo secondary who made a lot of mistakes over the last few weeks of the year. So I think Burrow's in a real upside spot. I think he's going to be the quarterback who's dropping back more. And, you look at Allen, he's got a little bit more weapons, maybe a better run game right now. I think Burrow's the real upside play. And I think he's a good captain spot for this game.
Yeah, we've seen him put up 28 DK points in New England and 25 DK points in Tampa just in the past month. And Pierce, we know what kind of heater he went on here at this time last year.
Yeah, I'm going to eat the same chalk, and it is a bit of a cop-out just because I don't want to pick the receiver for the Bengals. One of the Bengals, if not 2 of the Bengals receivers, are going to have good games. Can't really sit here and tell you I know which one is going to be, but I can see in my crystal ball that Joe Burrow is going to have a pretty good game. Most people aren't aware that this Bills defense is really banged up. I mean, they should. You look at their performance over the last couple of weeks, they haven't looked very sharp. And the reason is Tre'Davious White's not 100%. Dane Jackson has been limited. Jordan Poyer is limited. Hamlin is out. So basically their entire secondary is injured. You got Von Miller is out. They're missing 2 other guys possibly on the defensive line. This is a great spot for Joe Burrow, and even against good defenses, and even in times where he's been sacked, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, he still performs. He still is able to maintain 3 or 4 drives per game where he piles up yards, and he's the guy that throws the ball into the end zone. The Bengals have been covering spreads all year, so they should be able to hang in with this game, if not win this game outright, and it's going to be a lot to do with Joe Burrow. I mean, he just simply wins big games, period.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the Bills' defense has been consistent all season, but one of the holes that many opposing quarterbacks seem to exploit comes against their passing defense. You both nailed that, man. We got last game of the weekend. So this is the Cowboys and the 49ers. These are the 2 teams who are coming off blowout victories here in the wild card round. Who do you like in this game, Pierce Dietrich?
We go with the Dallas defense. Both these
Woo!
defenses are good, but I want to take them in the captain spot because I expect this game to have a lot of action. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs in this game, and you're really going to have to try to do something different and break away. And you can even take Dallas's defense and play some San Francisco offensive players, hoping for a big play or 2. But I really expect this Dallas team to get sacks, to get turnovers, interceptions, and possibly get a defensive touchdown. Brock Purdy really hasn't faced a strong elite pass rush. Dan Quinn, this team is talented. They've got plenty of tape on this kid. He also holds onto the ball a little bit too long. I think the pressure is going to get to him. I think the pressure is going to get to him early, rattle him. He's already shown some signs in the last couple of weeks of maybe not being as good as some people think he could be. You rattle the kid a little bit, you put him on the ropes, and I think things are going to fall apart for him, and Dallas is going to score a bunch of points on defense.
So you're talking about captaining the Cowboys defense. Yep. I love that. I mean, that's just $6,000 the captain spot, so you automatically have a bunch of other cash to play with there. Jeff Ulrich, what about you, man? Who are you going with for 49ers and Dallas Showdown contest?
Yeah, I like cash to play with. I like that call, honestly. I think one of the scenarios, the potential scenarios that a lot of people just won't consider is Dallas dominating on defense and potentially, actually limiting San Francisco, how many points they score. But I'm going to go with a little bit more traditional play because I like the Cowboys in this game too. But one of the main reasons I like them is because of the matchup on the outside with CeeDee Lamb. I really like going with CeeDee Lamb in this game. I think you're going to see a real breakout here. San Francisco, they're really good at shelling down against the tight end, against the running back, but they leave their cornerbacks on islands a lot. And you saw that last week because Charvarius Ward, they're still trying to put out the fire on him after DK Metcalf burned him for 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. So now you got CeeDee Lamb coming, a guy with a 21% team target share, 4th highest in the league, a good after the catch receiver as well. Maybe he doesn't have the pure speed that DK Metcalf does, probably a better route runner. This is a really tough matchup here. Teams against San Francisco as well, you have to pass against them. They don't allow rushing touchdowns. I think Lamb's going to be busy in this game, and he's going to be a key figure. And if Dallas does win this game or get out in front early, it's going to be because of him. So I would bypass Christian McCaffrey in this game. I'll even take this step further. Ooh. You captain CeeDee Lamb. You fade Christian McCaffrey, who's been not that great when Elijah Mitchell has been healthy. And maybe use Mitchell down the lineup as well. But you captain CeeDee Lamb here. And yeah, let's go Cowboys, I guess. Pierce and I both on this train.
Didn't Elijah Mitchell only have 9 yards last week or something like that?
He scored a touchdown. Receiver, Emerson.
Fair enough.
Part of the game.
That's it. That was a test, and you passed. Okay, Pierce, enjoy the weekend. We will miss you. Ulrich, stick around because we need you for some NHL opening face-off coming up because, yes, I know there's only a pair of NHL games on the docket, but some big names on the board. You got sends forward Brady Tkachuk, scored the OT winner on Wednesday night against the Pens. What can he do for an encore in the rematch this evening? We will see what Jeff and Paul Bruno think coming up. All right, just a two-game slate around the NHL. We're going to give you a DFS and Sportsbook look at it right now with Jeff Ulrich and RotoWire's Paul Bruno. Let's start by giving everybody some DFS flavor out there. Let's satisfy that craving for Sens Penguins. So these two faced off, just Wednesday night in Ottawa here, Paul. Brady Tkachuk put up 4 points. You got to have him in your lineups tonight? What's going on?
I think I'm going to go for the home side in the back-to-back. I think you don't get the best of Crosby and company twice in a row, and so I'm expecting Sidney Crosby to have a big evening, and I'm surprised the price tag for him is rather low at $6,700. I'd pair him with his line mate, Jake Gensel. Of course, you're looking for stack opportunities. I think the Pens are the play here, and if you want to fill in with a cheapie, guy's going to get power play minutes alongside those guys, maybe on a second unit. Jason Zucker for $4,300. He's got 4 goals and 2 helpers in his last 6 games. I say the Pens get revenge in this one, so I'm going to go Pittsburgh heavy.
I mean, Jeff, is that your move here too?
Yeah, I do think so. I think this will be a higher scoring game. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh, Tristan Jarry on IR. DeSmith has been okay though. And again, I think that this is a good get right spot for Pittsburgh. They've been a little bit shaky. They've suffered from losing their goalie, but again, a close loss against Ottawa in the last game. Had a win before. I think that the Penguins come out and probably dominate here. Just in terms of DFS, again, I mean, Paul mentioned the Pittsburgh players. I'm going to just give out a value from Ottawa because, again, I think that it's both sides of this game are viable. I still think you could potentially see another 5-4 game. I think Drake Batherson at 5,700, a nice target, a nice value target. He's averaging about 3 shots per game over his last 10 starts. And I mean, this is kind of a streaky player, but from a goal scoring perspective, fully capable of getting you a couple goals in a game like this. Solid minutes, over 20 minutes of ice, playing top line, power play minutes, everything you want. And at 5,700 in a game where I think we're expecting, like I said, I'm expecting probably 7 or 8 goals here. I think Batherson's a really good value. So yeah, I would stack up the Pens, but again, we got a 2-game slate. I think Batherson's a really good value target on the other side.
All right, well, let's go to that second game. Avs taking on the struggling Canucks in Vancouver. What a difference a week has made here for Colorado, Jeff. They're on a 3-game winning spree right now. They've been the dominant squad during that stretch. Previously, they had won just one of their earlier 8 games here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this in a second, but you're still getting an opportunity here to buy low on Colorado, and you need to take advantage.
Okay.
We've been waiting for this. The Colorado Avalanche aren't going to fool around here. This is going to be ugly, in my opinion. I would just jump on everything to do with the Avalanche, and I'm not even sure. In the other game I mentioned, you might see 5-4. You might see Ottawa grab some goals, making competitive. I don't even know if that's going to be the case here. Colorado coming off a dominant 4-1 win over the Flames. Now they get a weaker, division rival here. I think you can look all the way down the Colorado lineup. Arturi Lehkonen, they're at 5,000. A guy I really like, 5 goals in his last 3 games. He just does everything too. The minutes he plays, insane. Just a really solid 2-way player. I think he could. This is a perfect spot against a weaker, power penalty kill, just a weaker special teams unit for Lehkonen to pop. So 5K. Really like that, but you got to stack Colorado in this spot. This is not a time to fool around with them.
Are you stacking the Avs here tonight, Paul?
Absolutely. I go with that whole first line. Lehkonen brings down the average. I'm glad my partner in crime mentioned that. I like Rantanen, though, has been on a tear of late, and he's only priced at $7,300 if you want to get two-thirds of it. You might not be able to get McKinnon in there. He's at $8,800, but consider that he's got 13 points in his last 6 games. So they're on fire, and they will not take a misstep against Vancouver. And that means you got to go for the goalie win here, too. So don't forget to take the starting goalie, whether or not it's Georgiev is immaterial. They're going to roll in this one, as Jeff implied. The key also is to also throw in Devin Taves, $4,600, a great value there, particularly if you consider that Cale Makar is a little nicked up and may not even play. That thrusts Taves into the starting role as the PV quarterback there behind all that offense that we've both implied.
All right, we'll get you guys out of here with this. Which game interests you more from a sports betting perspective? Jeff, sounds like you're going back to Colorado here.
I don't know why Colorado is plus 145 on the puck line, but happily to take plus 145. I would have taken plus 100 probably here. This is again a buy low spot in my opinion. Again, Colorado. Here's just an example of why I think this is such a good line. Colorado, despite their losing streak, they never really moved off second favorite in the Stanley Cup odds. This is a team that everybody knows is elite. They went through a little bit of a rough stretch. Their goalie seemed to get worn down. Georgiev now, had like a week off, looked great in his last start. I don't even really care who gets the start here because, again, we're playing the Canucks. And if the Colorado Avalanche are going to start limiting shots and playing better just defensively as well, they're just going to be way too much for the Canucks here. Plus 145, too good. And I do like the over again on Ottawa and Pittsburgh. I just don't see much changing. Again, I think Pittsburgh's offense could potentially put up 5 or 6 on their own. So give me the over in that game, and then give me Colorado on the puck line.
All right, Paul, what do you want?
I love Colorado on the puck line, and Jeff covered that. So I'm going to just talk to about Pittsburgh at home. Plus 155. That's just about as good a looking a bet for me too, considering the revenge factor and all that we've mentioned to date. It's the home side winning in that one.
Gentlemen, your job here is done. We got one more block to go following our final break. Let's go. NFL divisional round prop bets, baby. Joe Burrow, can he outsling Josh Allen in Buffalo? We go high or low on NFL props next. All right, it is time now to dive into the props department ahead of the NFL divisional round. Julian Edlow. Poof. Sneaky, sir. Damn good to have you here. We got VSiN contributor Will Hill making his debut here. Two dudes who made their debut on the show. We had Mike Mutnansky earlier today. We got Will Hill in the house. I said, Jules, tell me something about Will Hill earlier off camera. And he goes, Will Hill is a nice guy. So it's great to have a nice guy here, Will.
What's going on, boys? One of the best weekends of the year, divisional weekend. It's you got to enjoy it while you can, because after this, we got 3 football games left with the championship weekend and the Super Bowl. So, man, the season goes by quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. It's kind of depressing. Hopefully, this round can match what we saw last year in the divisional round. It was like 4 walk-offs, I believe.
Yep.
So let's get into some prop bets here, dudes. We'll start in Kansas City. Jags, America's team, on the road, trying to shock the world. Trevor Lawrence passing yards total against the Chiefs set at 249.5. Hey, Will, is that too high or too low in your opinion?
I will lean under here just because I think Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, does a really good job. Remember, he won a Super Bowl with the Giants, dominating the Patriots. He won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs a couple years ago. You give him extra time to prepare. I think he can throw enough disguises, enough curveballs at Lawrence to fluster him. We saw Lawrence get flustered early last week in that Chargers game where he was really bad early on in the game. The only thing keeping me off the under, though, I just don't like the Jags defense in this matchup, and that's going to put the Chiefs, I think, in the 30s in terms of points. So you could see a pass-heavy script here for Lawrence. And, we saw it the other night with Brady, where I think he got up to like 65, 70 attempts. I think it was 66 he ended with. Sometimes if you fall behind, you get enough volume where that could push you over. So I lean towards the under, but I think he gets enough volume where it's just enough to keep me off it, but lean to the under here.
I mean, damn, Jules, looking at DK Sportsbook now, it's down to 244.5. Look at the difference there, too, with Patrick Mahomes. That's at 309.5, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it getting bet down, it makes it tougher and tougher not to go with the over. If it's at 244.5 now, that's tough. And we talk about it. The matchup is what makes me lean under, just like Will. But you look at it, what happened when they went to Arrowhead earlier in the year? They lost by double digits. Lawrence got 259 through the air. When you're projected to lose by around double digits, it makes it so hard to take a passing under. And you look at Trevor Lawrence's numbers on the year, home road split's a big part of it. At home, 259.8 passing. On the road, 229.2. So on the road, it does push you towards the under. You look at these last games, if it's going to be another type of comeback or playing from behind like it was for Jacksonville last week, 288 against the Chargers, who have a pretty solid secondary. But that was the first time he went over this mark in 4 games. He stayed under the last 3 regular season games. So like Will, I'm leaning under, but with a team that's, trending towards a 9-point dog on the road, it makes it really hard to take a passing under.
Let's go Giants-Eagles now. 51.5 yards for a rushing yards prop here for Jalen Hurts, Jules. Is that just maybe a little too low, showing no respect for Hurts as a runner? He's got 760 yards on the ground this season, man.
Yeah, ticking up. You see the 51.5 right now for the rushing yards. This one is kind of less about X's and O's, numbers and analysis, and more about Jalen Hurts' health. Yeah. Because I think that last game against the Giants, we can just throw that one right out.
13 yards on 9 carries.
Right. The 9 carries is a little misleading. I'm sure they didn't want to actually run him that much. If Hurts is injured in any way, then you can't bet it or you got to play the under. But he's been off for so much time. I feel like they're just kind of keeping this under wraps, and he's good to go. This is now, the last one was just kind of, hey, get this win against the Giants practice squad. This one is do or die. You got to get this game. And you mentioned the 7 carries for 77 yards. I would lean over here, but I think the better bet, I would take Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown score, which I think is around -110 because they use him down by the goal line a lot. But I think that's the better way to bet him rushing, but I do lean over here. I think in a do or die game, you got to let Hurts go and be himself.
Yeah, well, I think Jules nailed it there. I think the key is going to be a healthy Hurts. If he is healthy, I think we're going to see him carry the ball plenty of times, right? Question is, does he hit the over here?
I like the over. He's off the injury report. I think that's a big key. And you mentioned that game a couple weeks ago. I think that gives you maybe even value on the over. People looking at that, and that brings the number down. I only look towards over rushing props with quarterbacks in the playoffs because, regular season these guys hold back a little. You can't run every play, even the guys that run. You won't be able to hold up if you're running all the time. But hey, we're 2 wins away from the Super Bowl now, these teams. So it's high leverage, more, quarterback scrambles, more designed quarterback runs, more quarterback sneaks. We see that all the time with these backs pushing the quarterbacks forward anytime it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. So I could only look towards an over here. I'll probably end up betting the over.
Bengals, Bills here, Will. So these passing yards prop now for Burrow and Allen, they're much closer than they were yesterday. 279.5 for Burrow, 277.5 for Josh Allen. Whose number is too high? Whose number is too low? What do you think?
I would go over on Allen. I think if you look at the Cincy defense, and I've made this mistake a little bit too, I think, where you look at them this year and you think it's the same team that made the Super Bowl run last year. I don't think it is. I think there's a few things that they're missing. Obviously, the offensive line, which we'll get to with the Burrow handicap, but they're not the same defense. Awuzie hasn't played since Halloween, the big time corner for Cincy, and they just haven't been tested. When you look at the schedule, and you could sometimes it's as simple as looking at the opposing team quarterbacks. If you look at the quarterbacks they've played, it's Huntley, it's Brown, it's Pickett, it's Bridgewater early in the year. I think it was PJ Walker. They really haven't been tested. They haven't been exposed. They're going to go into Buffalo now, and they're going to see a much different passing game. So I would look over Allen. If you want me to talk about Burrow here too, I would go under on Burrow just because the offensive line. They're missing 60% of the offensive line. We saw the pre-snap penalties Miami had last week in Buffalo. So, hey, remember, sacks count against passing yards. So if he has 3 or 4 sacks, that sets you back. I just don't know that he'll have the time to throw. So I go over Allen. I go under Burrow.
Jules, what do you think about these 2 props here, man? I feel like both teams are going to need to keep their foot on the gas for 4 whole quarters to win this game.
Yeah, and neither team is really good on the ground right now. Neither team can get much going from their running backs. Obviously, Allen probably the better of the 2 when it comes to quarterback yards running the ball. These are tough passing props. This is probably the game that I have the least feel for in the prop market. I would mostly agree with Will if I had to pick a best bet from any of the over-unders on the quarterback passing yards. I would probably go over on Josh Allen because I think Burrow is harder to cap with that line. He's going to take some sacks, but it also leads to maybe getting the ball out more, quick screens with the lack of running game they can get right now with Mixon. And then when you have a guy like Chase that you can get an 80-yarder to at any point in the game, that can break a passing prop wide open and just wipe out your whole handicap. So passing on Burrow, best bet from both of these would be an Allen over, but nothing real confident from me in this game, really.
All right, well, final game of the weekend. That's going to be San Fran hosting the Cowboys here, man, meeting in the playoffs for the 9th time. We'll see if Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who is now very relevant, can throw for more than 1.5 touchdowns. It's the same passing touchdown prop as Dak Prescott. Which one do you like to go over on?
I like the Dak over one quite a bit. I think San Francisco's really good on defense. I think overrated is maybe a strong term. I just think similar to Cincy, when you look at the quarterbacks they face, they really haven't been tested. I think they're vulnerable a little bit to a good passing game. And again, go back to the quarterbacks they face. They faced Geno Smith 3 times. They've faced David Blau and Colt McCoy and Baker Mayfield. They really haven't been tested with, elite passing games. When they did, they faced Kansas City in the middle of the season, and Kansas City absolutely obliterated them. I think they can be had in the secondary, so I'll go over with Dak. And I'm afraid to sound like a square. I guess I would go over with Purdy too. I mean, look, 7 games he's thrown 2+ in every appearance. The only ones he doesn't throw 2 are the ones he throws 3. It's really kind of amazing. Just so much talent around him, so much skill, such a great scheme where there's just people open wide and left. So I would go over on both. I think we'll see some points in this game.
Which one you betting?
Yeah, I'll keep it simple here. Dak Prescott has multiple passing touchdowns in 9 of his last 11 games. I won't overthink it. I'll go over. And like Will said, the Niners secondary is by far the weak link to their defense. And I love the Niners in this game, so I think that Dallas could potentially be playing from behind. I like the game total over as well, so that plays right into Dak over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
You were right. Will Hill is a nice guy.
He is nice.
He's a great guy.
Maybe we'll have him on again.
Good having you on. Well, looking forward to having you back here on The Sweat again very soon. We are out of time, everybody. That is our show. Don't forget, you can catch us on SNY tomorrow, 10:30 in the morning Eastern time. Looking forward to seeing all of you then. Also, 11 o'clock over on Masson Sunday morning. Peace.